Welcome back.
It was on the lawns of this beautiful old world castle that the idea of lawn tennis was conceived, and it was played not in shorts, but in crinoline. They used pear-shaped rackets, and the umpire had lovely whiskers. The crinolines got rather in the way, but an underhand service and scooping returns made things a little easier. There was none of the dash of the modern game. Then it was a kind of polite pat ball.
A common thing I see these days is people want to look like tennis players, but they don't actually play tennis, which makes total sense. Tennis fashion has always been in vogue. I personally love that tennis fashion is like kind of all the rage these days. I'm seeing people in pleated skirts or, sweaters tied around the neck. I love the look. So what we're gonna do today is I am going to explore how tennis fashion has evolved over the last 100 plus years. Keep in mind, trends tend to be localized, so this video isn't going to reflect the trends across the entire world. And the line between trends is a little bit blurry. These things don't happen overnight. But if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. I'm curious, what is one tennis fashion trend you want to see come back? And what is one you never want to see again? Tennis was invented in the 1860s by British Army officer Major Walter Clopton Wingfield, which he would patent in 1874. The clothing matched the fashion of the day. Women were expected to wear all layers of normal dress, including corsets, bustiers, and petticoats. They wore wide-brimmed hats, voluminous skirts, and heeled boots. Initially, athleticism was not encouraged in women. Actually, they were urged to simply hit the ball to their opponent. Most women wore an apron over their day dress to protect it from dirt and grass stains during play. By the 1890s, women's fashion for lawn tennis was slowly beginning to adapt to the sport. They did away with all the layers, the heavy woolen clothing, and the, quote, absurd little visored caps, according to Juliet Atkinson, author of the official Lawn Tennis Bulletin of 1897. Women switched to simpler, plain tennis dresses with full skirts. This is when tennis whites were introduced and gradually became a rule, with Wimbledon mandating all-white uniforms for its players in 1890, which is still in effect today. Men like Spencer Gore and William Marshall opted for trousers and pinstripe blazers. This era of tennis was defined by female players like Maud Watson, Blanche Bingley, and Charlotte Dodd, who is still the youngest ladies singles champion to this day, winning Wimbledon at only 15 in 1887. In the early 1900s, women played tennis in floor-length skirts, stockings, and long-sleeve tops, all which prevented range of mobility. During this time, we saw players like Brit Dorothea Douglas, who won 7 Wimbledon's women's singles titles, Mae Sutton, who in 1905 became the first American player to win the singles title at Wimbledon, and Charlotte Chatty Cooper, one of the few female players at that time to serve overhand. But by the 1910s, and with the education of women and the rise of the suffragettes, women were starting to fight for their equal rights and gain independence. That meant not conforming to the strict and binding dress code of the late 1800s, but instead wearing dresses in a lighter weight material and even wearing short sleeves. By the 1920s, girls were done with the corsets and were ready to move. Players like Helen Wills Moody, Julie Blasto, and Frenchwoman Suzanne Langland wore shorter, shapeless dresses to intentionally challenge the previous beauty standard by creating straighter silhouettes. Women who rebelled against the old Gibson girl ideal, which lauded a girl with a slim waist yet voluptuous chests and hips, were called flappers. The likes of Langland and Ellen Bennett Whittingstall even wore flapper-style headbands on the court. Langland caused a stir when she played Wimbledon with bare arms and a knee-length hemline. American tennis player Bill Tindon was known for his preppy style with cuffed white trousers, V-neck sweaters, and collared shirts. Women's uniforms fit in with the loose and boxy silhouettes of the 1930s. Players like Helen Wills Moody preferred to wear pleated knee-length skirts and visors. Men like Fred Perry wore trousers, V-neck sweaters, and collared shirts. During this decade, French tennis player René Lacoste created lightweight, breathable cotton shirts, also known as polo shirts, and started mass-producing them in the early 1930s. Englishman Henry Bunny Austin was the first player to ever wear shorts, as up until then men played in trousers. He would shortly be followed by Alice Marble, #1 world tennis champion and Nazi fighting spy. Now we're coming into the 1940s, which was mostly defined by World War II. Women's clothes on the court were military-inspired, wearing shorts and donning a more structured look. But toward the late 1940s, women began embracing a flowy, flirtier look. American tennis player Gertrude Moran, known as Gorgeous Gussie, sent shockwaves through the country when in 1949 she wore a top with ruffles and lace shorts called fringed panties, designed by British designer Ted Tinling. They were considered racy and naughty. Photographers would even lay flat on the ground to get pictures of the lace shorts. Tinling would go on to design dresses for the likes of Billie Jean King, Margaret Court, and Martina Navratilova well into the 1980s. By the time the 1950s came around, women's tennis uniforms were all about cinched waists, decorative cardigans or Letterman sweaters, and feminine pleated skirts, worn by players like Maureen Connolly and Althea Gibson. It was during this decade that Fred Perry launched his namesake sportswear brand in 1952. He would later state in an interview, "I was generally regarded as the best-dressed player of my time."
We ask, is it just coincidence that men, like sportswear designer Teddy Tinling, dictate the trend of woman's fashion? Man's practical touch introduces a brief but pretty taffeta petticoat to keep the skirt from clinging during play. When he put lace round Gorgeous Gussie's tennis panties, Colonel Tinling revolutionized sportswear so that he was described in America as the guy who makes the sports girl look the way the guys like them to look.
Then the 60s roll around and the popular look changes again, and mod fashion takes off. Streamlined tunics with pops of gingham were popular, as were graphic shorts worn by English players like Virginia Wade and Lorna Greville Collins. Leah Pericoli and Maria Bueno were known for pushing the boundaries of tennis uniforms in their miniskirts, bold colors, and graphic prints. Pericoli even wore an ostrich feather dress, which Tinling created for her during Wimbledon of 1964. The 1970s were often referred to as the golden era of tennis because of its growth, overall popularity in the US, especially among celebrities like Farrah Fawcett, Diana Ross, and the Kennedys, and its significance in style, trends, marketing, and personal identification. Many opted for terry cloth headbands and colorful striped polo shirts. Arthur Ashe opted for collared shirts, vests, and short shorts. Tinling designed dresses for players like Chris Evert and Billie Jean King. This look dominated the courts through most of the 1970s. Guillermo Vilas went on a 46-match winning streak, all while wearing Puma tennis shoes, establishing Puma's spot on top as supplier of high-level tennis athletes. The styles of the 80s tended to be more rebellious and individualistic in nature. Jane Fonda released her first workout video in 1982, which may have inspired American tennis player Ann White to wear a unitard to Wimbledon in 1985. Her match was postponed until the following day, and she was asked to change her clothes. At the 1987 US Open, American Chris Evert lost her diamond bracelet on the court during a match, and the game was paused until it was found. The 90s were known as the fitness fashion era. Generally, this decade was all about loud colors and designs. Women like Steffi Graf, Monica Seles, and Arantxa Sanchez Vicario were often seen wearing matching colorful and floral skirts, polos, hair scrunchies, and windbreakers. American tennis player Andre Agassi paired denim shorts with fluorescent cycling shorts and flamboyant shirts. He even refused to play Wimbledon from 1988 to 1990 because he didn't approve of the all-white dress code. Venus and Serena Williams would appear on the scene in the late 90s with their well-known beaded braided hairstyle and would soon take tennis by storm. In the Y2K era, brand endorsements became one of the biggest influences of modern tennis flair and apparel for top players. Roger Federer inked a deal with watchmaker Maurice Lacroix. Rafael Nadal sported a look no one had ever seen before: sleeveless tops, wristbands, and most notably, capris with Nike head to toe. At the 2002 US Open, Serena Williams made waves in her first catsuit designed by Puma. At Wimbledon in 2008, Maria Sharapova debuted a Nike-designed tuxedo-inspired ensemble. Serena Williams also displayed a tuxedo-style blazer at the same tournament. Venus and Serena would push the fashion boundaries in the 2010s in their catsuits, tutus, and corset dresses. What I'm seeing for the future of tennis is a return back to the basics. Players seem to be wearing clothing that's functional, like dry-fit tanks, shorts, skirts, and simple dresses. Some players wear muted colors, while others opt for louder and bolder prints. Tennis star Leylah Fernandez attended the 2021 Met Gala wearing Carolina Herrera, and she paid homage to Venus and Serena Williams, who famously modeled black and white striped Herrera dresses in 1998. Emma Raducanu also attended the 2021 Met Gala in Chanel and inked a £2 million deal with Tiffany. All I can say is I'm looking forward to the future of tennis and tennis fashion.